This is your no bullshit guide to a happier life. Quick, but not necessarily easy tips to help you to squeeze every last drop of enjoyment out of your business and your life. My name is Helen Calvert. I'm a coach, a business owner and a parent, and I'm so happy to be here with you. I do swear occasionally, as the title suggests, so pop in your headphones if I'm not safe for little ears. Ready to go? Let's do this. This episode is sponsored by Linda Owen of LMO Bookkeeping. Linda provides accounts and bookkeeping support for sole traders and small limited companies. Sole traders can benefit from a fully supervised monthly accounting package, including free agent software, quarterly meetings, and self-assessment submission. Startups and small limited companies can access LMO's experienced bookkeeping services, which can be a full virtual financial director provision, simple bookkeeping overviews, or a mix and match approach as your business grows. The goal of LMO bookkeeping is to become an integrated part of your team. Linda will give structure and systems to the finance function to keep you on top of your numbers and ready to make growth decisions with confidence. She helps you by meeting you where you're at and putting systems in place that give you efficiencies and ultimately a smoother running business. If you're new to business or an established company who needs a helping hand, Linda would love a chat about how she can help you. Linda also understands the unique challenges faced by ADHD business owners when it comes to their finances. So if that is you, rest assured that Linda has your back. Find out more by visiting lmobookkeeping.co.uk or check out the show notes for this episode. Hello and welcome to this episode, which is about creating life the way you want it to be. This is the first episode of season 5 of the No Bullshit Guide to a Happier Life. I can't believe we're on season 5. Thank you so much for all of your support to get us to this place. The amount of downloads we've had is incredible. The support for this podcast blows me away. And that is the reason why we're back, because I am, as I alluded to at the end of last season, I am navigating autistic burnout at the moment. I'm also, you might be able to hear in my voice, on the tail end of the flu bug that has been ravaging us all in winter 2024 to 25. So I'm not in the best of health. And I think if it wasn't for the amazing support of this podcast community, I might not have chosen to return. But I'm very excited to return because this season we are going to be talking about life from the autistic point of view. I alluded to last season the fact that I was hoping to do a lot of content about neurodiversity this season, being neurodivergent. And I was thinking about talking a lot about autism because that's my experience, or talking about all kinds of different neurodivergence, or doing something completely different. And I asked my audience and I got some really fantastic responses. And the title of this episode, Creating Life the Way You Want It to Be, has come from an email I got from one of my listeners who said that whilst all my chat about neurodivergence was really interesting, and I think this listener is neurotypical, so whilst it was really interesting and, you know, she was sure it was really supportive to people in the neurodivergent community, she really enjoys my content about work-life balance and creating life the way you want it to be. And she wouldn't want to lose what she termed my wisdom, which is very kind, my wisdom on those subjects. So she was hoping that I would still be talking about those things as well. And it really made me smile because the reality is that every piece of content you've all ever consumed from me, so every podcast and every chapter of my book, every blog post, every reel, every bit of content you've ever heard from me has been my approach to life based on the fact that I come at life as an autistic woman. It's just when we started this, I didn't know that. No, I didn't know that right at the start of when I started these podcasts. And then I think by the time I published the book, I think I did know I was autistic, but I don't think I had fully, no, I know for sure, I had not fully understood the extent of that. Not the extent of my autism, because you have it or you don't, but the extent of its influence on my life, which I now understand is complete and total. So it's interesting, isn't it, that understandably, people who are neurotypical might feel as though a lot of discussion of neurodivergence wouldn't really be relevant for them. They might feel like, oh, it's not really for me anymore. In the same way, or in a similar way, that all kinds of discussions about all kinds of issues can often feel separate from us. What do I mean by that? For instance, as a white woman, if I hear discussions about race, racism, minorities, the global majority, all of those types of discussions, and the experience of being discriminated against because of your race, it can be very easy for me to think, oh, that's interesting, or maybe I'm not interested, or I really want to learn about that, or maybe I don't really want to learn about it today, but I continue to think of it as something separate from me. You know, I haven't experienced racism as a white woman, so therefore it's like it's an interesting topic that I might choose to get involved with or not, or learn about or not, but it's not really relevant to me. Same with being LGBTQ plus. You know, if you are a cis straight human, you might find those discussions fascinating, you might find them off-putting, you might find them scary, you might find them boring, you might not care, you might be really interested, you might be desperate to learn more, but you still think of it as like, it's not about me. Right? It's like that's a separate thing over there that I can pick up or put down. And actually, I find this fascinating. And I'm going to be potentially slightly less coherent this season because, as we're going to discuss, one of the things about burnout is the difficulty in communicating. Communicating person to person, I'm finding very challenging at the moment. Broadcasting my thoughts, I can still do. So I'm not convinced I'll be as coherent as I've been in the past. So you may have to bear with me a little. Or probably the truth is that I will feel like I'm rambling and I'm actually not. Let's see if I can get this out in a coherent fashion. So the reality is that within our families, and I don't just mean our immediate families like our parents and children, but our ancestors, specifically our ancestors, the people who have shaped our family, the people we don't even really know, unless you're particularly into family history, you probably don't really know much past maybe your grandparents, great grandparents. The reality is that our ancestors will have experienced, just statistically speaking, all of these things. Like, I mean, I have no knowledge about this at all, but I do have a fair sense of the world. How many white people actually have people of all kinds of different races in their ancestry? And if that's the case, then there will be instances of racism and racial prejudice within our families. How many people in our families were actually LGBTQ plus in times when that was not even allowed, discussed? We actually have no idea what is even within our families, really. And then if you look at your family now, you know, your aunts, uncles, cousins, parents, children, how much do we truly know about their inner experience and their friends and who they hang out with and their relationships and what they've experienced in the past? You know, your cis, white, straight uncle might have had a relationship in the past with someone from a different race and culture. He might have had all kinds of experiences he's never spoken about. My point is that all of these issues actually influence all of us way more than we think they do. And the current, should we call it culture wars, identity politics, social media, it's very easy to be led to believe we all fit into different boxes. So, you might be, that might be a negative. You might be the kind of person who thinks, oh, that's them and this is us, and those trans people can be over there and those black people can be over there, and I don't want anything to do with them. We're talking about prejudice here, aren't we? We're talking about discrimination. Or you can be someone who is, really open and keen to learn and all involved in equality and diversity and, totally open to all of these things that you want to learn about. You still think of it as people being in different boxes. There's my gay friend, there's the people I know who are of Indian origin, you're still putting people in boxes because it's natural. It's what we do, and it's how a lot of us identify as well. A lot of us will choose to say, I am bisexual, I have ADHD, I have Jewish ancestry. Whatever you want to pick. You might pick a religion, you might pick a particular class. There might be all kinds of ways that you identify yourself, and then we identify each other. What I'm getting at, hopefully coherently, is that there's way more to the human experience than that. There really is. And we can get so excited and wound up about what boxes people are in that we can fail to recognise that the unique mosaic that makes up every single person has so many different parts. My experience as an autistic woman is currently my most important experience because it's the one I'm learning the most about and it's the one that's having the biggest impact. But I also have sexuality that is queer, that I guess I would choose the bisexual, pansexual boxes if I had to. I don't like to choose a box for my sexuality because I feel like it's more complicated and also simpler than that in some ways. I do have Jewish ancestry. I also am certain that I have ancestry I have no bloody idea about. I'm sure that most of us do, that we actually have more races and cultures in our families than we have any idea about. I have all kinds of ways that I identify. I'm cis female, so that obviously informs my life as well. But autism is currently the thing that is having the biggest impact. But it's also had the biggest impact on my audience. Because anything I've ever said to you all about how to get your needs met, identify your needs, advocate for yourself, find balance in life, look after yourself, understand yourself, self-care, the relationship we have with ourselves, how to organize ourselves. Last season, we talked about how to get shit done, how to be productive. All of that, every single thing I've ever told you, every single perspective I've ever given you, I have learned because I have been autistic since the day I was born, even though I didn't know that. And I have had to come up with strategies for coping in this world. Now, I am fortunate and privileged. I grew up in a household, not wealthy, but with money. We can afford things. And I grew up in a loving household. So, sure, my parents aren't perfect. Whose are? There's a lot of mental health and neurodivergence in the family that just wasn't understood. So, people made mistakes. But I grew up in a loving family. And I grew up in a household that I'm not quite sure how they did this actually when I look back, but I know that one thing my parents gave me was a strong sense I deserved to be happy and could be happy. What that means is that whenever I go through hardship, and I've been through some doozies, like we all have, I never lose faith in the fact that I will be happy again, that I deserve to be happy, and that I can find happiness. What that means is that I've never given up. I have always worked my ass off, overthought to the nth degree until I have come up with a strategy that makes me happy again, that enables me to be happy, that brings happiness to my life. And so many of the things I have told you about and taught you about and coached people in with my one-to-one coaching practice are strategies that I have come up with Some might seem obvious, some might seem off the wall, but it's everything I've come up with to enable me to be happy in a world that actually makes no bloody sense to me whatsoever. And I think it's interesting, isn't it, that when people talk about being neurodivergent, being autistic, having ADHD, having dyslexia, there are more neurodivergences than I think we talk about most of the time. We will look into later in the series what they all are. But when people talk about those things, it's so easy, if you haven't experienced it, to categorize people by how they present to the outside world. So, let's go right back to stereotypes. Let's think about Rain Man, the film with Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman. Dustin Hoffman did not present as a neurotypical person. Anyone who met that character would know that there was something different about them. And he struggled to survive in the world by himself. Now, what's interesting is that people who will tell you that they're autistic or have ADHD or whatever neurodivergence, if you see them functioning and coping and living a life and being happy and all these things, it's easy to imagine that therefore what they're experiencing or their type of neurodivergence is somehow less severe. Now, I do not know enough about the medical side of neurodivergence to talk about severity. What I do know is that the majority of the neurodivergent experience happens within our own heads. People talk about ND people having a rich inner life. I mean, oh my God, we will talk about that a lot more. It happens, the experience happens inside us. And someone who can stim in public and be a little bit weird and behave in front of you in a way that is a little bit odd, there's actually a lot to be said for the fact that that person is probably coping better than those of us who hide it and mask all the time. Because that hiding and masking is utterly exhausting and is one of the reasons I now find myself in autistic burnout, because I've done it for too long. Now I'm looking at the time, and that is a full episode, and I have so much more to say. So I suspect that this season will be a lot more stream of consciousness from me and not necessarily completely encapsulated episodes. The second episode is going to be an interview between me and my headline sponsor for this season, because I'm so excited to have a headline sponsor for this season. And so we're going to be chatting together, which I've never done before, an interview. And then after that, we'll go back to this format of just about 15 minutes of me talking to you. So right now, I just want to say that this season is going to be all about creating the life that we want, just like every season has been. I promise you it's going to be relevant to everyone. But just like every season, it's going to be me coming at the world from the experience of being an autistic woman. I'm just going to be talking about that a lot more candidly. And that will be the only difference. And I'm so excited to have you all on this journey with me. So until next time, let's be excessively kind to ourselves. And that is how we squeeze every last drop of enjoyment out of life. Speak to you soon. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to find out how to work with me or how to get your hands on a copy of my book, you can find all of those links in the info for this episode. My huge thanks to Stephanie Ward of the Spicy Brain Collective for sponsoring the whole of this season of the No Bullshit Guide to a Happier Life. You can also find out more about Steph's collective for neurodivergent business owners via the links in the episode info. See you next time.